Imagine a travel network built not on money, but on trust. An entire organization founded on a very simple but really radical idea. Well, today we're going to dive into that idea through a group called Servas. Think about your last trip. Were you just hopping from one landmark to another, kind of checking things off a list? Seeing the sights, but maybe not really seeing the people? What if there was a completely different way to experience the world? What if you could travel not as a stranger, but as a friend? Someone who's welcomed into a home, who gets to share in someone's life, even for just a couple of days. That's the big idea behind the global network we're getting into today. And let me tell you, this simple idea, it creates some absolutely profound connections. Just listen to this. A Canadian family stayed with a family in Israel 9 years ago. They thought they were just getting a place to sleep, but they ended up pitting cherries, making jam. They basically became part of the family. The whole thing was so powerful that almost a decade later, their kids, now adults, cleared their work schedules just to have a reunion over Zoom. And that story, it's not a one-off thing. It's pretty much the rule. This whole network is built on these kinds of connections, creating this kind of global welcome mat woven from really deep personal relationships. I mean, you can just see how these connections spiderweb all over the globe. You've got the Canadian and Israeli families we just talked about, bridging continents. Then you get these amazing coincidences, like two couples, both named Michael and Daphne, who find each other and become doubles on opposite sides of the world. And in a perfect little twist, a Korean family ends up being hosted by both couples on totally separate trips. And hey, even without getting on a plane, a virtual program connected an Italian and a Canadian who are now regular email buddies. It all feels so modern, right? Like something that would have been born on the internet. But its roots go way, way deeper, all the way back to the ashes of World War II. So the real question is, where did an idea this simple, but this powerful, really come from? To really get Servas, you have to get to know its founder, a man whose entire life was about challenging how things are done. So this is Bob Leutwiler, born into a pretty well-off New York family, but he was a nonconformist from the get-go. He was a conscientious objector during World War II, and his friends in Denmark even called him a fantast, which basically means a wild dreamer. And it was that experience as a pacifist that would shape his entire life's work. So check this out. Leutwiler was actually imprisoned twice for refusing the draft. Inside, they put him in a room with other conscientious objectors and a group of black nationalists. Now, he'd never met anyone like them, so he just walked right up and started talking. After 3 months of conversations, they told him he was the first white person they'd ever actually liked. For Leutwiler, this was a lightning bolt moment. Just talking, face to face, had the power to completely break down prejudice. Then, after the war, 3 key things happened that really cemented his vision. First, he met a young German woman who was literally trapped by currency controls, unable to travel and see what democracy looked like. Second, he met an American traveler who came back from Sweden with nothing but negative stereotypes he'd picked up from a rich, biased host. And third, he had this realization that he could use his contacts in all these post-war peace movements, like the Quakers and War Resisters International, to build a starting list of hosts who actually shared his values. So he took all these ideas and all these experiences, and he started to build. But the organization he first dreamed up wouldn't look exactly like it does today. It needed to evolve. At first, the group was called Peace Builders, and it stood on 3 main pillars: work camps to help rebuild Europe, peace activism, and of course, homestays. As Europe got back on its feet, the need for the work camps just kind of faded away. Eventually, the organization changed its name to Servas, which is an Esperanto word meaning to serve, to better capture its global mission. So today, the 2 pillars that remain are homestays and peace activism. And that idea of peace activism, it's not just some dusty old concept from the past. Oh no, it is a huge part of the organization's identity today. Okay, I'm going to throw a number at you. 32. What on earth could that mean? Well, that's the record number of service delegates who took part in the 2021 UN Commission on the Status of Women. See, as a UN-affiliated NGO, Service gets actively involved in these huge global conversations, especially around issues like gender equality. It's a really formal, structured way of promoting peace on the world stage. And their peace work isn't just happening at this high institutional level, it's also focused on the next generation. In 2020, 64 kids from all over the world joined an online Servas Peace School run by volunteers from 13 different countries. The whole goal is to exchange cultural values and build up this sense of global citizenship from a young age. I mean, this is peace building at the grassroots level. But, and this is a big but, the story of Servas isn't without its own drama. In fact, the guy who started the whole thing, he would eventually become one of its fiercest critics. See, Lou Weitler's grand vision was for a work-study travel program for peace. He wanted people to travel, not just to connect, but to actively study how to build a better world. But over the years, he started to worry that it was drifting into something different, something more like a simple low-cost hospitality program. And he really did not hold back. In his own words, he felt that Servas had degenerated into a program for bourgeois middle-class society and not very concerned with the basic social problems that are causing war. Wow. For Lou Weiler, just meeting people wasn't enough if it didn't push people to take real action against the root causes of conflict. So this leaves us with this really fascinating tension, right, at the very heart of the organization. What exactly counts as a true act of peace? Servas today is just full of these dualities. It's a grassroots travel club, and it's a UN-affiliated NGO. It's a network for personal connection and a movement for global peace. For some people, it's a simple way to find a bed for the night. For others, it's this profound tool to break down prejudice. It's a thriving global family that also has to wrestle with its own founder's most powerful criticism. Which brings us full circle, right back to Lou Weiler's core belief, born in that prison cell, the power of just talking to each other. So does sending delegates to the UN or running a peace school for kids address his big concerns? Or is the simple, radical act of just sharing a meal with a stranger enough? In a world that feels more and more divided, is a genuine, face-to-face conversation maybe the ultimate act of peace?